to another episode of In Depth with Dion. This episode is sponsored by Afropop Company, a craft soda company blending bold flavors and cultural pride made right here in Oklahoma. In this episode, I speak with Charles Wilkes, a Cherokee Freedmen descendant and a descendant of Tulsa Race Massacre survivors, about his effort to become the first freedman to serve on the council in over 100 years, and his plans for District 5, which includes parts of North Tulsa, if elected on June 7th. But first, the rundown. In local news, former University of Tulsa linebacker Donnell Hawkins has traded in his cleats for calculators as a math tutor training the next generation of Oklahoma's students. Only 27% of Oklahoma fourth graders scored at or above proficient in math, according to the nation's 2024 report card. In a recent interview, Hawkins told me, quote, "A lot of kids lose their confidence in math because they think they can't do it and it's too hard. Well, they're mathematicians in real life. It's just about how to pull that math out of them," unquote. In state news, a bill that would make it more difficult for Oklahomans to pass citizen petitions is one step closer to becoming law. Senate Bill 1027 would require petitioners to gather more signatures and signatures from a percentage of every county in the state, making it more difficult to cross the hurdle. Oklahoma currently has the shortest window of any state in the nation, just 90 days, to gather signatures. And in national news, U.S. President Trump and El Salvador President Nayib Bukele said he will not return Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland man who was wrongly deported to the Central American nation last month, despite a U.S. Supreme Court order urging the Trump administration to facilitate his return. The move has set up a constitutional crisis between the executive and judicial branches. Abrego Garcia was deported despite having an active court order blocking his removal due to fear of gang violence. Upon arrival, he was placed in a maximum security prison notorious for housing accused gang members. And those are some of the headlines. This is In Depth with Dion. I'm your host, Dion Osborne, recording from Tulsa's historic Greenwood District. And next, you'll hear from Charles Wilkes. Charles Wilkes, thank you so much for joining the podcast. For those who don't know you, first of all, right off the bat, I want to get into who are you and why are you running for Cherokee Nation Council?
That is a loaded question, right? So I was born in North Tulsa. I am a descendant of Greenwood as well as a freedman descendant. I am running for Cherokee Nation Council District 5 because of the fact that we have come so far, but we have so far to go. I graduated from McLean High School and went to Oklahoma State. I have lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma City, and Stillwater, so I've been an Okie all my life. I have always had a gift of gab. I've always been able to speak very, very eloquently and get my point across very well. And at a certain point in life, very young, in high school, I decided to start using this gift of gab to speak about problems that I saw going on in the community, whether it was at my school, whether it was on behalf of TPS, whether it was taking back community, talking about gang violence, talking about whatever. I spoke at numerous forums, things that were going on. And at a certain point, I was like, okay, I'm talking. Right. But let's get some work. So we started serving. We started going with different nonprofits, talking with elected officials, talking with people on the street, going to serve, going to volunteer through church, through nonprofit, through activism, through politically. My family has had a lot of activists and community members. As a baby, I took naps at city council meetings and community meetings, right? And so this is something that has always been a part of my life. Service has always been a part of my life. And I think it shines through even into why I'm running right now. I served with Joe Deere, who's the president counselor of District 13. And so I got to learn, right? I stayed in and I learned what was going on in Cherokee Nation. I started to voice some opinion and some analysts about that. I'm also a consultant, so I'm always looking at systems about how do we fix things, how do we make things better, how do we present things in a way that that can be partnership wise, communal, how we can find good process together, and when you have to stand apart, right, and you have to speak out on things, right. it's been a culmination of multiple industries, multiple processes, multiple serving points that has brought to this point about why it's so important that someone that has the understanding that I do sit in this seat as a new district. This is District 5. District 5 encompasses everything north of Admiral in Tulsa, from Osage Line to 129th East Ave, about half of Sperry, a little sliver of Collinsville, and about 40-something% of Owasso. And so someone needs to be able to understand the different needs and the comparisons of those different communities to make sure that we're having equitable change and progress that's going on in all of them. And I feel like I'm uniquely, built for that process.
Well, you gave a pretty good elevator pitch. I want to get into how, I guess, my interaction with you was as someone, as a journalist, not from Tulsa, just trying to, figure out the community, figure out who are the people that I need to be making sure I'm reaching out to understand the things that are happening. And you've always been someone who was always in the room. That's what I've noticed about you. You've always been in the room when it came to issues that were of, high significance, especially to North Tulsa and marginalized communities. And you've always been someone who, you maybe weren't the loudest person in the room, but you were someone making sure that the resources and the connections were there for the people to be able to make the impact they needed to make for their community. That's what I've noticed about you. And so when it comes to running for Cherokee Nation Council, a lot of people, even in Oklahoma, still don't really understand or have an awareness of the differences between tribal elections and American elections. Can you talk a little bit about why you decided to run for Cherokee Nation Council as opposed to, city council or something else?
So, quite frankly, I did run for city council. I ran for city council, Tulsa City Council District 3, and it was like 2018, I believe. I ran against Krista Patrick. It was David Patrick was going out. So I did have some background in that. I even threw my hat in the ring when it came to District 72, when Monroe Nichols stood up to run for mayor. And then I pulled out because I had, some things I needed to deal with, and it just wasn't my time for that. And I support Michelle in that process, in her role right now as our state rep. She's my state rep. But running for Cherokee Nation is different. It's very different for someone like me as a freedman, when we haven't had a freedman sit at that table in over 100 years, right? My family was removed from the party, right? So my great-grandmother and my grandmother never got to join Cherokee Nation. They were denied, right? And so there's a different burden, different responsibility there that I have about doing something like this, because this is on behalf of all those people who could not, right? This is on behalf of change that is very necessary and vital to the future of Cherokee Nation. And this is very necessary for the development of District 5, has come so far, again, but has so far to go, right? And so there's multiple significant layers in this race, and in me deciding to throw my hat in the
ring. And I want to just name some of those names of, those Cherokee freedmen who were formerly serving on council, because it wasn't a lot. And to give people an understanding of the history, I previously had Cherokee Nation Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin on the podcast, and we talked about everything from the Treaty of New Echota to the Trail of Tears to emancipating freedmen, Cherokee freedmen. And, he expressed support for changing the tide, changing the culture of the Cherokee Nation to be more inclusive of all its citizens. And, when you talk about, wanting to follow in their footsteps, it has been over a century since any Cherokee Freedmen descendant has served on Cherokee Nation Council. And some of those names include Joseph Brown, Stick Ross, Ned Irons, Frank Van, Samuel Stidham, and Jerry Alberti, Creek Sam, Jack Brown, and Fox Glass. They served in the 1890s. And there hasn't been anyone serving from Freedmen Descent since then. You spoke a little bit about how, you know, your family was taken off of your family was denied their citizenship.
Mhm.
You know, it was taken away from them.
Mhm.
Talk about why it's important for freedmen and non-freedmen. It's important for Cherokee citizens of all backgrounds to see all citizens reflected in their government.
Man, so I have studied things like life expectancy and social determinants. Social determinants has several food groups that culminate a score for a community that tells you the health of your community, right? And it goes on a neighborhood level, a city level, a state level, and a nation level. It has health, it has education, it has job market, it has food, it has I cannot remember the name, but it has to do with like racism and all those types of things that's under that food group as well. All of those things culminate to how healthy your environment is going to be. And I say that because if we don't treat and serve all of our citizens to the same level and capacity, the score is going to be lower. Because if I am doing well, but my 5 neighbors are struggling, our score is going to be struggling, which means I am going to live less time. I'm not going to live as long because of the fact that I live in a community where there's so much suffering. You know, in this country, there has to be winners and losers, right? There has to be those with and without, sadly, in order for it to run the way that it runs. I'm not really supportive of that. I believe that we can, you know, do equitable change and progress to make sure that everybody has a real opportunity to live the best life possible. And that means through health, that means through safety, that means through job and career, that means through food access, that means through clean water, that means through home ownership, that means through, you know, family planning, that means through a whole host of subjects, elderly care, right? Programmatic access. All of those things culminate being able to have a real fair shake at a life process. And so when I look at District 3, there are some populations there that have not gotten a fair shake, right? If I tell you you have all these options, if I tell you you have 20 options, but the only real 2 options presented to you are the 2 right there, you're going to choose out of the 2, right? Because you don't know about all the other options that are there. And those options are based on what the standard that's going on in your society. If you have the proper access and the proper care to make sure that you are the best person to be able to have all those things, right? Think about North Tulsa. North Tulsa is still considered a food desert, right?
Absolutely.
And so think about the fact that we have a portion of population that shops at Family Dollars and Dollar Generals for their food, right? That's a problem because a lot of the food that comes from locations like that are quick, ready-made food that's not healthy, right? So thinking about District 5 that has some people that have, and you have some people that have not, but we all suffer when there's so many people that have not. And so my goals, which I have layers of platform, but I have 4 main priorities, right? To start out as some wins.
Let's hear it.
That go into elderly care. I feel like we have such a responsibility to take care of our elders, to make sure that they have the most equitable care possible. In a day that, you know, Social Security and all these other things are starting to fail and not really, we don't know what the future of those hold.
Right.
We as Cherokee Nation need to make sure that we're taking care of our elders because that is a part of Cherokee tradition, right? And so I will look to push for funding that goes specifically for elder care. You know, I am not a person that thinks that we can have a bunch of lined out programs because there's gray areas, right? So I feel like we need to have some funds that talks about, you know, a council that basically, you know, we can have cases that come to the council, to this committee of people that say, hey, they need this. we won't have a program that takes care of this. Let's see what we can do right here now to make sure that something is taken care of. It's not a one size fits all when it comes to elderly care. Different people need different things. And so we need to make sure we have a process, a human-based process, right? That's not just through letter, through all these guidelines, federal guidelines, all these other things that says, hey, we are stepping out to say, we need to make sure that our elders are cared for. You know, as I knock doors and connect to people, I've had several elderly people that tell me they don't get anything from Cherokee Nation. They don't expect to ever get anything from Cherokee Nation. They don't want anything to do with Cherokee Nation. And that's sad, right? It's my job to change their mind. And that's literally what I said. I said, okay, you gave me a challenge. It's my job to change your mind, because if I'm there, I'm going to make sure that I can do the things that are going to help you have a different understanding of what it means to be a part of Cherokee Nation.
I mean, we wouldn't be here, first of all, without our elders,
At all.
right? And that is the single reason, the main reason, I'll say, that my granny won't come back to her roots. My granny lives in Minnesota, and I didn't even know that I had Cherokee Freedmen ancestry growing up because she never talked about it. And so I'm currently in the process of going through and obtain that citizenship for my granny and the rest of our family. And I would love for her to reclaim her roots also by coming back here. But she loves the way that they have elder care in Minnesota, and she fears that going back to Oklahoma, the lack of support, it wouldn't be the same. And so that is a huge stumbling block to even some citizens returning, to the land of their ancestors.
Yeah. Another one is jobs and careers. Mm-hmm. So I was a developer for a period of time, mm-hmm. and in my understanding of it, we lack when it comes to contractors and certification for those who do the labor of building homes and buildings. Mm-hmm. The average age in construction is 55 and up.
Excuse me, what?
We're not wow. training and certifying people to continue to add to that part of the ecosystem. We have a lot of push to have a lot more developers, mm-hmm. but who's going to do that work? Developers don't grab hammers. That's not how that works. Right. And so, we are looking to have some programs specifically about, plumbing, HVAC, general construction. So I've been certified to teach carpentry and construction in North America through the NCCR program. So I've learned about some of the curriculum and why it's so advantageous that you train mm-hmm. and work. It goes hand in hand. The curriculum has to be applied for you to really retain the process of learning how to go about it. Yeah. And so we are going to partner with unions, partner with other education programs and all those types of things to really culminate a robust program, an apprenticeship program, to make sure that we're helping young people within Cherokee Nation to get opportunities for these jobs. And through those partnerships, we'll be able to help all citizens, not just Cherokee, but all citizens get an opportunity to go into those fields and live productive lives through that. Another, priority is having a location with programs from Cherokee Nation. So right now we have an access problem. You have to know a lot of these programs exist. And then you have to know what the requirements for those programs are. And then there's programs that you have to go to Tahlequah to be able to sign up for. I see. And so that means the access is not there. Yeah. The knowledge is not there. And that can be very discouraging to get resources, the things that people need, right? And should have access to, because they're citizens. So by right, they should have access to these programs, right? As long as they follow those guidelines that go along with them. And so our goal is to have a location in Tulsa, right? We can have another one in Owasso as well, where we're making sure that you can come get these resources, right? I think the thing is that the understanding is that there is a need that's kind of hard to show, right? Because if you never have a program here, you won't know what the need looks like until you get here. When Cherokee Nation did the kind of basically American Rescue kind of type thing where they gave each citizen $2,000, it was the biggest sign of registering to the nation ever. It's one of the reasons why the district has to be split in half, because we had such a population growth, right? And so between that and the work that Joe Deere has done in this district has brought a lot more connectivity. So people have started signing up. Now we have a problem and an opportunity at the same time, right? We split the district, right? So Joe Deere's no longer the counselor. We have an opportunity for a new counselor, and we have an opportunity for these two counselors to work together on these communities. And so, we want to make sure we're getting things like that done, right? Another one, health, easy, health access. There's not a doctor, there's not any type of health resource with it from Cherokee Nation in District 5 at all, period. We need to change that. We need an urgent care. And in my goal, I feel like an urgent care needs to have an emergency resource access to it as well. The reason why I say this is because if you live at 66th Street North in Turley, tell me what the nearest hospital is to you.
I'm going to ask Jesse, the producer, on that one. Do you know? I have no
idea. You
idea.
either have to go to Owasso or you have to go to Hillcrest. Figure how far Hillcrest is from 66th Street North.
Pretty much the same distance to Owasso at that point.
Right.
30, 40.
That's at least a 16, 17-minute drive. If you've had a stroke or a heart attack.
Not counting the wait time.
Right. And if you have to have an ambulance come to you, the closest ambulance usually parks right about 46th Street North. So think about the time to get stabilized that you need. If you have a gunshot wound, if you've had an accident, if you're having a baby, if you like whatever that emergency situation, think about the distance that you have to cross to be able to get the help that you need. That's not equitable, right? And it's been like that so long. Think about that.
Since at least after the massacre.
Especially since Morton closed.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. The city of Tulsa, that government has taken a few steps, really just in the past few years. We just had the opening of the new urgent care in conjunction with what they're trying to do with Morton to bring that back. But that's just one or two options.
Right. And even that is on Pine. That's still far from 66th Street North.
Yeah.
Right? That's a whole nother.
You're basically in Turley at that point.
There you go. You're in a whole nother area. And so my goal is I feel like we need an urgent care smack dab in the middle of District 5, which will be between Tulsa and Owasso. Right? And I also feel like we need to have primary care clinics. We need dentistry. We need optometry. We need all of those things coming to this district. If you go to the hospital in Tahlequah, it is a world-class hospital. The standard is high. People travel to come to visit, to come study, to come see what's going on there. They have their own training for doctors, all of that process, right? We need that same quality care in our own backyard. Now, Cherokee Nation is doing some great progress, right? They're taking over Claremore. The Claremore, which was Indian Health, Cherokee Nation is taking over that.
I see.
And so there's some progress going, but that's 45 minutes away.
Yeah.
Right? We still need something here that's right here in our backyard to make sure we have that access. That's one of my promises of the campaign.
Well, so we have an idea of who you are. We have an idea of what you want to do. I want to ask your response because let's keep it real, right? We haven't had a Cherokee Freedmen Descendant serve on council in over 100 years.
Yes.
Right? It's only been since that 2017 court decision affirming that Freedmen Descendants have all the same rights and citizenship responsibilities of any other Cherokee. It's only been a few years since this generation of Cherokees has even been forced to reckon with the history and to accept their brothers and sisters as equals, right? It's only been a few years. So if we take that and we take that on the U.S., if we take that and compare it to the U.S. side, if we're thinking about the Cherokee Nation in terms of race relations, in terms of ancestry and acceptance, we're only like a few decades out from Brown v. Board. And so I'm sure that there's been some whispers. I'm sure that there's been some conversations among people in different communities who may or may not fully be accepting of someone of your ancestry to serve. What is your response to those who maybe feel concerned about having a Freedman descendant serving, or who feels that maybe you will only care about other Freedman descendants? Can you answer that?
Yeah. So I've had I had a question about that asked to me at the Freedmen meeting. Mr. Gary Lee actually asked me that question. He is a journalist, so he's smart in his questioning, right? I'll say the same thing. It's the same thing. What helps my neighbor helps my community. What helps my community helps my city. Any program that I am going to instate is going to help freedmen. It's going to help all Cherokee citizens. And by virtue, it's going to help every community that we're in, right? And so this urgent care that we're talking about, it's going to be able to serve everybody. It will have access specifically, of course, the type of care and free care that Cherokee citizens are supposed to have. But we want this resource to help everybody, right? Now, when it comes to the programs, of course, all of those are Cherokee Nation programs. So that's a wash. That's Cherokee Nation, right? But a lot of our programs are going to be about helping the communities that they're in. Cherokees are good neighbors, and I'm a good neighbor. My neighbors know me. My neighbors will take my trash out, will take my mail, and I'll come pick it up from them.
Yeah, better neighbors than me.
Right? But that's because they know what I'm doing. They ask me, how's the baby doing? Like, they check on us. They want to know, hey, there was some car by your house. What's going on? You all right? Everything okay? Hey, were you out of town? You were there a couple days. That's a good neighbor. And that is a mentality that I have. And so anything that's going to help a freedman is going to help a Cherokee citizen. Anything that we're trying to do for this community is going to help citizens and community members abroad alike. So do I have some type of specific strategy just for freedmen? No, I don't. Because what I understand is I want that same quality care, that quality standard for everybody. So nobody's a second-class citizen in this process. Everybody gets the same level of top-tier care. So that's my answer.
I want to know something more on a personal level. You had just mentioned your family a little bit. What is, I mean, with everything, with all the hats that you wear, right? What are some of the ways that you I guess, prioritize your family? And what are some of the things you like to do, especially with your little ones? Just to give people an understanding of who you are outside the suit.
Man, so I'm still very a rookie when it's coming to being a parent, right? And so I'm learning every day, right? Like, say for instance, my wife was sick. And so that means, hey, I can't go knock doors tomorrow. I gotta make sure wife is good. I gotta make sure kids are good because she's sick. And then one of the kiddos gets sick. And then I have to go and pick up kiddos and get home early. And so that means I'm taking care of the house. And I'm, we don't have some traditional type of role thing. Everybody puts their hands in. We both cook, we both clean, we both do everything, right? We do it hand in hand. It's a partnership. That's how it works. And so, and when one of us is struggling or one of us got something going on, we pitch in. That's how it goes. During this campaign, my wife has been a trooper because there's times I'm not getting home till 9 or 10 at night, right? So the kids are already asleep and everything. And so that's partnership, right? I'm probably more of the disciplinarian. and we have, they're all really young. And of course the baby's 7 months, so there's no discipline there. He is very rambunctious. He's named after me, has my whole name. And he keeps us up half the nights because he wants to yell. I am pretty much open book. I'm really like, in my personal life, I'm actually very much an introvert. I'm at the house.
Really?
I'm chilling. If I'm hanging out with friends, I'm not a partier. I'm not a let's go do a whole bunch of things. I like to rest, right? I like to play my video games. I like to watch comedy and listen to comedy. I probably the most thing I listen to is comedy more than music. I'm a person that, like, I will tune out the whole world to be at home with my family, right? To be hanging out with friends, to be, those types of things, because that's the real life. Right. That's where I get to just put all these titles, all these expertises, all that. That don't matter to them at all.
Right.
It matters how I'm present there. And then, to be honest, that's at some point, that's something that I know I'm still working on. Right. Because, having my first child at 31, right. That's a journey. like for real. Like I've lived a completely different type of life before. And so it is a lot. Yeah. It's a work in progress. I'm learning. It's a joy because, watching all three of them learn stuff and pick up stuff and their own, they each have their own personality. It's so interesting parenting, right? Because each child you parent differently to know what are their things that they need as you're, casting vision for them and trying to see about how to help make them the best that they can be. And then, with my wife, we're both very visionary. My wife is a midwife. And so, she has such a big future and big path, and I have such a big future and big path, and we figure out the nuances of how to make it work and, how to make sure we're taking care of our family and process and all of that. It's a lot, brother.
Look, as coming from a single bachelor with no kids, I mean, I'm just taking it in. I'm just taking it in. And, I think it's something that we forget to, we forget when it comes to thinking about what other people are going through, but also even within ourselves, we forget sometimes all the things that we're juggling. And I think it's good to kind of just sometimes sit in that and recognize that even where we are, we're doing a lot, and we should, take that into consideration when it comes to, being proud of where we've gotten and what we've been able to do. And so I guess I brought that up because, a lot of people at times right now, and it's going to lead me to my last question I have for you. A lot of people right now feel like they're powerless. They feel like they don't have anything they can do to impact society. And sometimes just taking care of your family, providing for your family, being an example for your family, is one of the most important things we can do in a society. And so I wanted to bring that in.
I have some thoughts about that. I think we live too much through our phones. We live too much through what's going on here, right? What's going on social media? What's going on? That's not real life. It's not. There's so many ideologies, so many, you got to do this way, or this is wrong, or these buzzwords, or this thing, or this mental health thing, or this thing. And it's like, all of those things have their place and strength, right? But it's plug and play. Everything is not applicable, right? There's nuance to life. Life is not black and white. It's a lot of shades of color, right? And, I have had to learn how to clear the noise, right? My personal life is very private. I'm not out with, my social media is very clean. Like, you don't really see much about my personal, because when I'm at home, I'm at home.
Right.
I'm chilling. I might be playing my game. We're talking, we're cooking, we're hanging out, we're cooking, we're cleaning, we're dealing with the kids, playing with the kids, or we're traveling, we're gone. You don't know where I'm at. You don't know what I'm doing. I'm cutting my own bubble. And I love it like that, because you can't have rest and peace and pride. Like when you're running for office, or you're a public figure, or you're doing all these things, you lose privacy. Privacy is so valuable. As a leader, that's where you go. Like, a seed doesn't grow under light. It grows in the soil.
True.
Right? And so you got to take that time to just go break down, right? You got to go, invest in yourself. You got to go and self-reflect. You got to go and process, right? I'm a person that when I get to a place of overload, or I get to a place that, something is going on, I say, hey, y'all give me a second.
Yeah.
I'm going to go sit in silence. I'm going to myself for a little bit. Let me release, let me process, let me get myself together. Because here's the thing. If I am broken, everything I'm touching is going to become broken.
That's the truth.
I am passing off issues if that's all I'm able to exude right now. Now, let's be clear. We all walk with issues. We all walk with things that we're dealing with, right? But there's a line of when am I spilling over what I have going on into everybody and everything else. And so I am really big on like, nah, I'm not about to pass that to you. That's not your responsibility to take care of. That's mine. Let me go process this. I go to therapy every week. Every week, Monday, 4 p.m., I'm at therapy. Every week. Why? Because it's not somebody else's job to sit and process all my things and me to pass on all those things. I've been a leader for a lot of people. I've been a mentor. I've been a mentee. I've been a servant. And in all those areas, I think it's very incumbent that I come with the biggest part of myself. I'm a Christian. And so I believe that, centering God's principles and how we do things is really big. And let's be clear. Let's be staunchly clear. When I say I'm a Christian, I'm not saying I don't identify with a lot of today's culture-based things that goes into the entertainment or pushing buzzwords when it comes to Christianity. I am big on principles and process and walking with God. That's it, right? And so in that, I believe that it's very incumbent that in all my things I walk in love, right? Because at the end of the day, there's two real things, love and fear, right? And if I am not walking in love, I'm walking in fear, whether it's through pride, whether it's through all those other things, right? And so I assess myself and say, if I can't give the thing that I know is the line that's good, I don't need to give it anything. I need to back off. Everything is not my fight. Everything is not my claim. I'm not some superhero, right? I don't aspire to be that. It's not my job to save the world, to change it tomorrow. I am here to plant the seeds that I am supposed to do, right? I'm just a gardener.
I love that.
And I plant those seeds and I tend and I help and I assist and then I go about my business.
Well, God is love. That's how I was taught.
Yeah.
But I also was taught that Jesus turned tables.
And that's love too.
Okay. Well,
that's love too. That's not a thing about love, because the thing is that to stand for truth is to love. I don't have to fear to stand for truth. If I'm fearing standing for truth, which side of the truth am I on?
Woo, preach, please preach, because I need to hear this one today.
Truth is love, right? And when we're talking about history, when we're talking about what people need, when we're talking about real policy, when we're talking about all these things that I actively participate in daily, that's love, right? Because at the end of the day, the things that I'm looking to do, I may not get to see the fruit of. Right. But somebody down the line is. And I may lose the battle.
Right.
But if somebody saw that fight and that invigorated them to say, you know what, maybe I'll get in a fight. I'll give a little story right there. Just a little hint, little Bible random story. David and Goliath, right? David picked up 5 stones. He only needed 1 for Goliath. But there was 4 other giants. Think about that. He didn't have to kill those other giants. Somebody else got up and did it. He set the standard by doing it first. And when somebody else saw it could happen and be done, other people got up and rose up to be a part of the process.
So you forget about that part in that story.
Right. It changes the thought about the story. Because it's not just about that microcosm of that moment. It's the trickle down of the movement that it started. Giants start falling everywhere. And so I think the thing is that if what you and I are doing, right, with the truth that you push through journalism and the things that you're talking about, that builds the proper narrative that goes along with how do we make people understand that they have power in their process, right? Because that was the core of your question.
Yeah.
When I talk to people that ask me how to get involved, I first ask you, what do you got a burden for? What do you really care about? Right? Because, we everybody will come out, we've made activism so popular. We've made organizing popular, but that doesn't mean that the core essence of it is actually happening, right? We got a lot of people doing things, but that doesn't mean we're moving the needle and really proving process. Find out what you have a real core burden for, right? And I think, some people think about burden as such a negative term, and that's not true. It's just another word of responsibility. Right? Find out what you have a real care for. Find out what you understand the most, right? I understand community organizing because I watched it growing up. I participated, I served in it, right? So now it's ingrained. And so now I know I reach 1, I can get that person to reach 2. I can get those people to reach more. And while we're building wins through getting things done, moving the needle, we're building people power. There's only 2 points of power. There's organized people and organized money.
Yeah.
Right? And so we ain't got that kind of money.
Right.
So we need to organize these people. And people can be the most inconsistent resource. So if I help you to understand what gets you up in the morning, not getting up for me.
Right.
What gets you up? What do you really care about? In election time and in pulling political power, I have to know what affects your house. What makes you get up first is your kids, is this job you're going to, is making sure the bills are taken care of, make sure people are safe, make sure people are healthy.
Right.
So how do I make sure that I'm doing things in those food groups, right? That makes sure that you'll get up and come talk to me, because you're like, they're gonna have a clinic that I'm gonna be able to go to. I'm coming. Let's talk. Right? If I know, hey, they're making my neighborhood safe, but I just got to come and talk and tell them how to go about it, I'm coming. It actually impacts me. We have sensationalized politics by talking about big problems. People get demoralized by big problems. Systems. Individual people can't stop systems. It takes people power to change systems. And so if I break it down to what is your level of change and access, that's where we start to build out and grow from. Not by what's going on at the Capitol. Baby, by the time that you see things going on at the Capitol, the tendrils for that started 5 years ago. So how do we start to galvanize and have a network of people that can stop those things at their entry before we have to fight into some big system of people that we're not definitely organized, prepared for yet? We're still building. We're building. And that labor is tough.
Well, you're taking that effort to represent the people.
Yes.
And to help galvanize the community. And so for those who want to support you, how can they get involved? How can they find your campaign information? And when can they vote for you for Cherokee Nation Council?
So you can find me through Wilkes for Cherokee Nation Council District 5 on Facebook. We have a website, Wilkes 4 letter D 5.com. I have a phone number, 918-933-8772. You can find me through a lot of different mediums. In Tulsa, we're all one person linked to connecting to somebody, right? Yeah. So you can find me, you can reach me. I am more than open to having a conversation to hear, more of what the platform is. I want to hear what your issues are. We may have some things we need to add to the platform, and I'm very open to that, right? Absentee request forms end on April 7th. So you have a deadline going on there. We can get a form to you if you need one. And election is June 7th. And so we have a short time to make sure that we're pushing for these things. In the Cherokee Phoenix, my opponents and I had to answer survey questions. I want you to go look at those questions. And I feel like they stand out. I feel like they show that we have a real built vision, and we already have the communal power to push to make those things happen. If you've seen any of my endorsements, if you've seen any of my, testimonies from community members, voters, citizens, we do the work. Yesterday in Owasso, we had a tornado, right? They just effectively called it a F1, right? And so we didn't campaign in Owasso yesterday. We went to help people. We went to help pull debris. We went to go talk with the council. We went to go connect with people and ask how we can assist, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what we do. That's what we serve. This is serving at the end of the day. And so that's what I'm going to continue to do. We've talked to several families. We asked, did you need anything? How can we help? What's going on? I went down a whole list of people. Let's connect. Let's make sure that everybody is okay. Thank God there were no injuries.
Yeah.
In that process, some people lost their homes, right? And so our thoughts and prayers are with them, and we want to work with them. But it's service. That's the point that we're trying to get everybody to understand. And I think the thing is, when it comes to my campaign, it's not just me running, we're running, because it's going to take all of us to put this vision together, right? We've had to push really hard for a lot of these things in this district that we have. And it's going to be a push and a fight at times to get some of the things that we're going to need. And so I'm going to need you. I'm going to need you at the meetings. I'm going to need you to speak your piece. I'm going to need you to come with me to Tahlequah when we got business to take care of. I need your presence, because you are just as important as I am, as anybody else in this process. So come lend your voice.
Well, y'all heard him. Charles Wilkes, running for Cherokee Nation Council, District 5. Thank you so much for joining In Depth with Dion.
Anytime.
Appreciate you. For this week's Community Spotlight, I spoke with Zachariah Mwatia, the head of mission for Doctors Without Borders in the Ulang County of South Sudan. On Monday, April 14th, armed gunmen stormed the medical office and hospital, looting the place and forcing patients out. The facility has since been closed. Mwatia told me he's urging the international community and the South Sudanese government to ensure safety for medical staff and personnel operating in the country. Check out what he had to say.
And therefore, on the 14th of April in the morning, armed men stormed the hospital and started breaking the doors and taking away the medical supplies, breaking the doors and windows, carrying away the furniture and equipment. After finishing the hospital, they also went to the office and also to the base where international staff are living. So they had to take away the computers, the furniture, beddings, and food which was available, plus some of the engine for the boats. And so as we speak now, we made a decision to suspend all the services because we are not able to operate in such an environment of insecurity. And having been looted, we have nothing to use to offer the health services we are offering.
After you condemned the assault on the office in Ulang County, has there been any response from the international community or any other agencies willing to help support you?
Yes, we've had a lot of solidarity from the ICRC, and we also with the UN, OCHA, and the UN resident humanitarian coordinator has condemned this attack on the health facilities and the threats towards health workers. The UN resident coordinator condemned yesterday strongly, and she released a statement urging for access and protection of medical missions in the country.
That's all for now. Thank you for joining us on In Depth with Dion. Watch on YouTube, on Patreon for exclusive and behind-the-scenes content, or anywhere you get your podcasts. This episode is presented by Afropop, an Oklahoma-based craft soda company. Special thanks to our producer, Jesse Ulrich of Pod for Good. I'm Dion Osborne, your host. See you next time. Stay woke.